What if the person you are desperately missing right now no longer exists? Have you ever noticed how the mind quietly replays the most beautiful memories of someone while completely erasing the reasons why they are no longer in your life? There is a strange kind of freedom in realizing that you are not holding on to a person anymore. You are holding on to a memory, an echo, a ghost. If you have ever felt stuck, emotionally exhausted, or entirely consumed by missing someone who has changed, walked away, or become unrecognizable, this is for you. Stay until the end, because the final lesson may change the way you see this pain forever. 1. The illusion of the past. Why is it that the tighter you hold on to who they used to be, the more you suffer in the present? Here is the truth few people want to face. We rarely mourn the person as they are today. We mourn the version of them that made us feel safe, loved, and understood. You replay the old conversations in the quiet of the night. You wonder where that kind, attentive, or loving person went. You wait for them to wake up and return to the version of themselves you trusted, the one you built a future around. But in doing so, you are trying to pull a timeline backward. You are arguing with reality. You are demanding that the present moment reshape itself into a past that has already dissolved. Buddhist wisdom teaches that one of our deepest sources of suffering is our attachment to permanence. We want things to stay exactly as they are. We want people to remain exactly as they were when they brought us joy. But Buddhism reminds us of a fundamental truth: impermanence. Everything is in motion. Seasons shift, leaves fall, and people evolve, break, harden, or heal, sometimes in directions that pull them entirely out of our orbit. Imagine standing on the bank of a river. The water flowing past your feet right now is not the same water that flowed past you yesterday. If you reach in and try to grab the water you touched a week ago, you will only be left with empty, clenched hands. You cannot hold a river still. People are like the river. The version of them you are grieving has already flowed downstream. We see this everywhere in modern life. We see it in relationships that end abruptly, in friends who become strangers, and in family members whose hearts grow cold. You might check your phone, hoping for a message that feels like the old days. But the person who would have sent that message is gone. Ask yourself, are you missing who they are today? Or are you missing the way you felt when you were with them? Are you holding on to a living, breathing person, or an illusion that your mind refuses to let go of? Pause, breathe, observe the thought without following it. Notice the heaviness in your chest when you think of who they used to be. Acknowledge that the version of them you miss was real. It happened. It was beautiful. But it has passed. Let the feeling rise without making it your entire identity. You do not have to force yourself to stop caring, but you must stop demanding that the past return. Because peace is not found in forcing the river to flow backward. Peace is found in stepping out of the water, sitting quietly on the bank, and letting the current move without you. But letting go of the past is only the first step. The mind is a relentless traveler, and it will still try to chase what is already gone. And this is where the next truth begins. 2. The pain of chasing a ghost. Here is a truth that is painful to admit. You are exhausting your own heart by trying to reason with an empty room. Think about the times you have reached out, hoping for a specific response. You send a message, or you start a conversation, expecting the warmth of the person you used to know. But instead, you are met with distance, a cold reply, or worse, silence. You analyze their words, their tone, their actions, desperately trying to find a trace of the person who used to care. You tell yourself that if you just explain your pain differently, they will understand. You convince yourself that if you just wait a little longer, they will remember who they used to be. But the devastation you feel is not because they are misunderstanding you. It is because you are speaking a language of love to a version of them that is no longer there. You are waiting for a stranger to remember how to love you. In Buddhist thought, this is the root of our deepest sorrow, clinging to an image instead of accepting the reality standing right in front of us. Buddhism reminds us that when we refuse to see things exactly as they are in this very moment, we trap ourselves in a cycle of suffering. You are looking at a mirage in the desert and feeling heartbroken when it does not quench your thirst. It is not the mirage's fault for being an illusion. It is our attachment to the illusion that creates the ache. Imagine walking through a quiet, shadowed forest and arriving at a beautiful house where you once lived. You knock on the door, expecting a warm fire and a welcoming embrace. But when the door creaks open, the house is empty. The furniture is gone. The hearth is cold. You can stand in the doorway for days, crying, yelling, or demanding the fire to burn again. But the wood is gone. You cannot warm your hands on a memory. We do this every day in modern life. We look at old photographs or scroll through social media, piecing together a story of who they are now, contrasting it with who they were. We sit across from them at family tables, or we pass them in hallways, feeling a deep, silent grief. The body is there, but the spirit we knew has departed. We suffer because we expect a cold hearth to give us warmth. Think about your own life. What are you still trying to extract from this person? Are you waiting for a ghost to apologize? Are you hoping a phantom will finally give you the love you deserve? Is this hope bringing you peace, or is it feeding your fear? Pause, breathe. Notice the exhaustion in your body from carrying this heavy expectation. Stop trying to force the door open to an empty house. Let the feeling of loss rise without acting on it. See them exactly as they are today, not as they were yesterday. Do your part, then release the outcome. You do not need to chase what is already leaving. You can put down the heavy burden of trying to wake them up, because recognizing the ghost is only the beginning. The deeper struggle is making peace with why they faded away in the first place. And this is where the next truth begins. 3. Understanding the law of change. What if the person you miss did not change to hurt you, but simply because it is the nature of all things to change? Here is the truth few people want to face. We view the shifting of a human heart as a betrayal. When someone we love transforms into someone we no longer recognize, our first instinct is to internalize it. We ask ourselves what we did wrong. We wonder if we were not enough to make them stay the same. You replay the final good days in your mind, obsessing over the exact moment the light went out in their eyes. We treat their evolution, their withdrawal, or their newfound distance as a personal failure, a puzzle we must desperately solve to get them back. But Buddhist wisdom teaches us that nothing in the universe is static. Everything is in a constant state of becoming and dissolving. A flower blooms, and then it wilts. A storm gathers, and then it clears. Buddhism reminds us that a profound layer of our suffering arises when we take the natural law of change personally. We try to freeze a single, beautiful moment in time and demand that it lasts forever. But neither joy nor sorrow, neither people nor feelings can escape the law of change. Imagine lying on your back, watching clouds drift across an endless, open sky. Sometimes they are white and full of morning light. Sometimes they are dark, heavy, and full of rain. When a cloud shifts its shape or slowly blows away, you do not cry. You do not ask the cloud why it left or beg it to stay. You simply watch it move, knowing that it belongs to the wind. Yet, in our lives, we fight the wind. We hold on to friendships that have naturally expired. We stay in relationships long after the connection has faded, clinging to a promise made years ago by two people who no longer exist. We stare at a silent phone, feeling crushed by a partner or a friend who woke up one day with different desires, different fears, and a different path. We suffer because we expect human beings to be monuments carved in stone, rather than clouds shifting in the wind. Ask yourself, are you taking the natural evolution of another human being as an attack on your worth? What if their departure, their silence, or their transformation is not a reflection of your value, but simply the wind moving a cloud across the sky? Pause, breathe, step back from the desperate need to control their journey. Let the thought of their transformation pass through your mind without grabbing onto it. You do not have to understand their new path. You only have to accept that it no longer runs parallel to yours. Stop trying to hold the wind in your hands, because true peace is not found in forcing the clouds to stay still. It is found in becoming the vast, open sky that allows them to pass. But accepting their departure often leaves an empty, aching space. It leaves a burning desire for one final conversation, an explanation, a final apology. And this is where the next truth begins. 4. The myth of shared closure. What if the apology you are waiting for is the very thing keeping you trapped? Here is the truth few people want to face. We believe that to truly move on, we need one final conversation. We crave an explanation. We want them to look us in the eyes and acknowledge the pain they caused, or at least explain why they suddenly became a stranger. You tell yourself that if you just knew why, the ache in your chest would finally stop. You wait for a message. You rehearse what you would say if they ever reached out. You leave the heavy door of your heart slightly open, hoping they will walk back through, just to give you a proper goodbye. But in doing so, you are handing the keys to your peace to the very person who walked away. You are making your healing dependent on a ghost. Buddhist wisdom teaches that true liberation is never found outside of yourself. When we demand an explanation or an apology from another person, we are still practicing attachment. We are attached to a specific outcome, to a neat ending, to the belief that the outside world must resolve our inner turmoil. Buddhism reminds us that peace is an internal state, completely independent of the actions, apologies, or understanding of others. Imagine standing outside a heavy locked door in the freezing rain. You are knocking until your hands are tired, begging the person inside to open it just to tell you why they locked it in the first place. You wait for hours, shivering, staring at the handle. But there is a strange and beautiful secret you have forgotten. You do not have to wait for the door to open. You can turn around. You can walk away from the door entirely and build your own fire. The door does not need to be opened for you to be warm again. We forget this when relationships end in sudden silence. We agonize over unreturned calls, over the sudden distance from lifelong friends, over the coldness of those we thought we knew. We believe that without their final words, our story is broken and incomplete. We convince ourselves that moving on is impossible until they validate our experience. We suffer because we refuse to walk away from a closed door. Ask yourself, what are you truly waiting for them to say? Will their explanation actually erase the pain, or is your mind just looking for a reason to keep them in your thoughts? What are you afraid will happen if you give yourself the permission to close this chapter without them? Pause. Breathe. Notice the tight grip you have on this need for a final answer. Stop knocking on a door that has already closed. Let the feeling of unfinished business rise without making it your identity. You do not need their voice to quiet your mind. You have the power to write your own ending, because true peace is not an apology they hand to you. It is the quiet realization that you no longer need one. But walking away from that door forces you to finally sit with the empty space they left behind. And this is where the next truth begins. 5. Reclaiming your inner space. What if the emptiness they left behind is not a void meant to be filled by them, but a clearing meant to be reclaimed by you? Here is the truth few people want to face. When someone fades from our lives, we experience their absence as a profound, aching loss. You look at the silent screen of your phone. You notice the quiet on a Sunday morning. You feel the heavy, invisible weight of the space they used to occupy. We become obsessed with this emptiness. We define our days not by what is happening, but by who is missing. You walk through your own life feeling like a guest in a home that has been robbed. But Buddhist wisdom teaches us that emptiness is not something to be feared. In our minds, an empty space feels like a wound. But in Buddhism, emptiness is often understood as spaciousness, the very foundation of freedom and new beginnings. We suffer deeply because we insist on defining the space by what was taken away, instead of recognizing what the space now offers. We cling to the shape of the loss, instead of the breadth of the newly opened room. Imagine a dense forest where a massive, ancient tree has suddenly fallen. For a long time, there is only a shocking, jagged hole in the canopy. The landscape feels broken, the shadows feel wrong. You can stand there weeping for the fallen tree, wishing you could pull its heavy roots back into the earth. But because that tree is no longer blocking the sky, sunlight is finally reaching the forest floor in places it has not touched in years. New seeds, which had been buried in the dark, suddenly have the light and space they need to grow. We struggle to see this sunlight in our modern lives. When a relationship ends or a friend walks away, we sit in our lonely rooms feeling the crushing weight of their absence. We view our newly found solitude as a punishment. We rush to fill the quiet with noise, with distractions, with scrolling, because we are terrified of the empty clearing. We believe that if the space is empty, it means we are abandoned. We fail to realize that this space is the exact environment required for our own deep renewal. Ask yourself, are you staring so desperately at the fallen tree that you are completely missing the sunlight hitting the soil beneath your feet? Are you letting their absence dictate the feeling of a space that now belongs entirely to you? What could grow in your life right now if you stopped trying to block the sun? Pause, breathe, feel the physical space around you right now. Let the silence in your room be just silence, not an agonizing echo of their voice. You do not have to frantically fill the quiet. Sit in the clearing. Let the feeling of emptiness rise without judging it as bad or wrong. It is simply space, because true peace is not found by pulling the past back in to fill the void. It is found by learning to stand comfortably in the vast, open space they left behind. But sitting in that quiet space eventually brings up the quiet, lingering resentment over how the story ended. And this is where the next truth begins. 6. The art of silent forgiveness. What if the resentment you are carrying toward them is only burning you? Here is the truth few people want to face. We hold on to anger because it feels like justice. When someone leaves us without explanation or changes into someone cold or indifferent, we build a fortress of resentment. You replay their actions in your mind, meticulously counting every unfairness, every broken promise, every moment they let you down. You believe that if you let go of your anger, it means what they did was acceptable. You think that by staying angry, you are holding them accountable from a distance. But Buddhist wisdom teaches that harboring resentment is a profound form of self-harm. It is often compared to picking up a burning hot coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else. They may never feel the heat, but your own hands will burn. We believe our rage is a shield, but it is actually a chain that binds us to the very person who hurt us. Forgiveness, in the Buddhist sense, is not about absolving them of their actions. It is not about pretending the hurt did not happen. It is about cutting the chain. It is the deep, radical choice to no longer let another person's past actions destroy your present peace. Imagine gripping a thick, rough rope that is attached to a heavy boat drifting out to sea. The current is strong, and the boat is steadily pulling away. The tighter you grip the rope, the deeper the fibers cut into your hands. Your palms are burning, your muscles are shaking. You are pulling with all your might, demanding that the boat turn around, screaming that it is not fair. But the boat is caught in the tide. It cannot hear you. The only way to stop the agony is not to pull the boat back to the shore. The only way to stop the pain is to open your hands and let the rope go. We do this with our grudges. We sit in our quiet rooms, our hearts racing, having imaginary arguments with someone who is miles away and fast asleep. We let a ghost control our heartbeat. We let someone who is no longer in our life drain our energy because we refuse to let go of the rope. We suffer because we confuse holding a grudge with holding on to our self-respect. Ask yourself, is your anger actually teaching them a lesson, or is it only keeping you trapped in the past? What are you afraid will happen if you simply open your hands? Are you ready to let the boat drift away so your own wounds can finally heal? Pause. Breathe. Notice the tension in your jaw, the tightness in your chest. That is the rope cutting into your hands. Stop trying to pull them back into the court of your mind to stand trial. Let the feeling of unfairness rise. Acknowledge the hurt, and then quietly choose to release it. You do not have to call them. You do not have to tell them they are forgiven. You just have to let the rope slip through your fingers, because true forgiveness is a silent practice. It is not a gift you give to them. It is a mercy you give to yourself. But once the anger is gone, you are forced to face the heaviest sorrow of all the dreams you built that will never come to pass. And this is where the next truth begins. 7. Grieving the unlived future. What if the heaviest tears you cry are not for what you lost, but for what never actually happened? Here is a truth that is painful to admit. The deepest, most exhausting grief does not always come from mourning the past. Often, it comes from mourning the future. You are not just letting go of a person, you are letting go of an entire timeline. You grieve the trips you planned to take together, the milestones you thought you would share, the quiet Sunday mornings you imagined 5, 10, or 20 years down the line. You built a phantom life in your mind with this person. When they leave, or when they change into a stranger, you do not just lose their presence today, you lose the entire world you had constructed in your head for tomorrow. In Buddhist thought, the mind is a master architect of suffering. We suffer deeply because our consciousness leaves the safety of the present moment and wanders into a time that does not yet exist. We form intense, heavy attachments to fantasies, to expectations, to a beautiful script we wrote for a play that has not yet been cast. Buddhism reminds us that the future is never guaranteed. It is an illusion. Clinging to an imagined tomorrow only robs us of the reality of today. The pain you feel is not the reality of the present moment. It is the violent collision between reality and your imagination. Imagine spending months drawing a meticulously detailed map of a beautiful city. You map out the cobblestone streets, the glowing street lamps, the house you will live in, and the exact paths you will walk every evening. You pour your heart into this vision, but when you finally travel to the coordinates on the map, there is no city. There is only a vast, quiet, open field. You can stand in the tall grass and cry. You can stare at your map, angry and devastated that the streets and buildings are missing. Or you can slowly fold the map, put it away in your pocket, and look at the wild, quiet beauty of the open field right in front of you. This is what we do in modern life when we refuse to let go of an unlived future. We clutch our maps tightly. We look at the empty passenger seat in our car and grieve the conversations we were supposed to have. We look at the calendar and feel a pang of dread for the holidays that will now be spent apart. We sit in our current, quiet reality, and we torture ourselves with an imaginary one. We suffer because we refuse to fold up the map of a city that was never actually built. We are mourning a ghost of a future. Ask yourself, Are you agonizing over the reality of right now, or are you weeping over a daydream? How much of your current pain is tied to a tomorrow that was never promised to begin with? Pause. Breathe. Gently bring your mind back from the future. Notice your feet on the ground in this exact second. Acknowledge the beauty of the plans you made, but give yourself the profound permission to let them go. The future you imagined was just a thought, and thoughts can be released, because true peace is not found by forcing reality to match your imaginary map. It is found by learning to walk gracefully in the open field of the present. But accepting this open field requires you to stop waiting for someone else to build your shelter. It requires you to take full ownership of your own ending. And this is where the final truth begins. 8. Creating your own ending. What if the closure you have been desperately waiting for is something you must create entirely alone? Here is the truth few people want to face. We are taught that an ending requires two people. We believe that to truly close a chapter, we need a mutual understanding, a shared realization, or a gentle goodbye. You have spent nights waiting for them to recognize your pain. You have left the door to your heart cracked open, hoping that one day they will return to finish the story they started. But when you are missing a version of someone who no longer exists, waiting for a shared ending is like waiting for a ghost to write you a letter. Buddhist wisdom teaches us that true liberation is an inside job. No one can hand you your inner peace. No one can walk the path of letting go for you. When we rely on another person to grant us closure, we remain endlessly tethered to their actions. We hand over our sovereignty. But Buddhism reminds us that you do not need their permission to heal. You do not need their presence to accept that the season has changed. The power to close the circle has always rested in your own hands. Imagine reading a beautiful, deeply moving book. You read it for days, completely lost in the story. But when you turn to the final page, it is blank. The author simply stopped writing. You can spend years staring at that blank page, angry, waiting for the author to come back and write the final paragraph. You can carry the heavy book everywhere you go, refusing to read anything else until the ending is provided. Or you can pick up your own pen, write a single period at the bottom of the page, gently close the book, and put it on the shelf. This is what it means to create your own closure in modern life. It means finally putting down the phone instead of waiting for a message that is never coming. It means packing away the old memories and accepting that they belong to the past, not the present. It means looking at the empty space they left behind and deciding that you are going to live fully in it without them. It is the quiet, profound realization that the story is over, not because they gave you an explanation, but because you finally decided to stop staring at a blank page. Ask yourself, are you ready to pick up the pen? Are you ready to stop waiting for a ghost to give you permission to move forward? Look at the heavy burden you have been carrying. You have mourned the illusion of the past. You have stopped chasing the ghost. You have accepted the law of change. You have let the rope of anger slip through your hands. Now, it is time to write the final period. Give yourself the grace to close the door softly and to walk toward the rest of your life. Because peace was never something they took with them when they left. Peace was always here, quietly waiting beneath the noise, waiting for you to return to yourself. You have survived the storm. You have stood in the clearing. Now, you get to build a life that is completely, beautifully yours. If these lessons touched your heart, share this video with someone who may need a little more peace today. You can let go now.